Hi, everybody. This is day 1489 days since Richard was premeditatedly murdered on Fort Bliss. And it was premeditated, and it was for him being a whistleblower reporting criminal trafficking, which includes this child trafficking, child sex trafficking. So, let's there's so much going on, and we're going to be burning the midnight oil, but I wanted to make sure that I read through everything that I wanted to tell you. And one of the main things, of course, is Leilani Hart and her new additional confession, which is like an extreme crisis. She's in extreme crisis because of the lies. Her mind is in extreme crisis of lies, right? Because the lies are being uncovered, they're being debunked. There's so much evidence against them, and so she, uh, and I don't. It's hard for me to describe this, but I'm going to try. She has been doing this for decades. Her life is a crisis of lies. Okay? She is constantly lying to manipulate, to commit crimes, to control people. Her life is extreme sport of crisis of lies. Okay, that's her life. And can I say that? Yes, because before Richard was even born, she was already a confirmed, convicted criminal because of lying to the authorities, for having mental health issues, for assault, for harassment, for breaking restraining orders. Uh, you know, Before Richard was even born, she was a extreme crisis of lies, a confirmed convicted criminal. And so this has been going on, and she has honed, she has sharpened, she has developed um, her strategy in lying to manipulate, to discredit honest people, good people, trying to expose her. And, so, uh, here we are 4 years after Richard was premeditatedly murdered. And we have worked day in and day out to expose her extreme crisis of lies. I want to say extreme sport because for her, I think that's what destroying people, controlling people, um, milking the system, um, putting vulnerable individuals in the hands of criminals, getting unauthorized access and manipulating reality to cover up her crimes, and I think other people's crimes. And in Richard's case, of course, she participated, and her confession absolutely confirms the uh, you know what, Team Find Richard Halliday said it really right today, just analyzing her confession and deciphering um, what she was trying to do in it. And it really reveals this blueprint of the murder and cover up of Richard. And, that's so, thank Team Find Richard Halliday for that, because it's absolutely right. And, that is in addition to exposing the pattern of these extreme lies in crisis. And one thing, when you read through this confession, you know, it's so much different from her notarized um, affidavit in one respect. In one respect, she is in panic mode right now. She was in her prime crisis of lies with the affidavit that was referred to the FBI and accepted, and of course it being notarized. She was in her prime, but this confession is messy. It's so messy because it just shows her mental health issues and the extreme crisis and the panic mode that she is in because she's facing the death penalty. Okay? She knows that. She could care less about us getting our son's remains back. She's facing the death penalty. She's facing the lethal injection. And she's also facing the haunting of Richard. And I'm sure that's with many other victims. Many other situations that she has been in. So, but she is absolutely facing the death penalty, the lethal injection, and she knows it. Richard's, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. We haven't given up. Richard's not going to give up. Richard will haunt her. Yeah. She won't have a moment of peace. And and why I've been saying that for the last few nights, because it has absolutely come to us that we're not alone. Team Find Richard Halliday is big, and it goes through the barrier of the other life. And what happened today is so big that even law enforcement is calling us now. We're not having to report, they're calling us. Because for 4 years we've been also honing truth, sharpening that sword of truth, right? That cuts through all of these lies, even if it's the extreme sport in crisis mode lies, right? We have been also developing and collecting and documenting and filing the truth. And so, that's why even the law enforcement is starting to call us. And we're very appreciative for that. We're very grateful for Team Find Richard Halliday that has given us these leads, given us the evidence. We're not alone. And that goes to my dad. That goes to Richard. That goes to, not many people know this, and I don't know if I should say it. But my mother-in-law, who passed away in these years too, she absolutely supported us and even did it anonymously, and we found out later um, when all of this was going on. And so her spirit is with us too. Um, and, it's just really amazing that we have come to this point where we can cut through the absolute decades long lying life of Leilani Hart, and it's a confirmed, convicted criminal lying. This is thick. This is super thick. She's got it honed, right? But it's in such crisis now that it's kind of like when you think of Daniel's dream and you think of the clay feet, it's crumbling. It's crumbling, and she's facing the death penalty. And so she's throwing, like in this confession, she absolutely throws Bob Moore under the bus. And I'm sorry that I have to kind of say that in a happy way, but I am. I'm so happy he's being this is an analogy, right? She's throwing him under the bus by exposing that his story is a false story. Because, truth doesn't change, right? Truth doesn't change. But lies, they never can keep it straight, and it gets manipulated. And that's what she does in this confession. And thank you, Anicia, for coming on. I see you. Thank you for your love and prayers. So, she is one exposing and confirming that she's in crisis mode, right? Because it is just absolutely craziness. And she is an absolute extreme crisis lie mode. And it's so absurd what so many of her lies that it is exposing Bob Moore's lies as well, because he used her as a source, and she is an unreliable source. She's been an unreliable source since before Richard was born. We have talked to her victims. We've talked to a Marine victim who absolutely confirmed all of this. Yeah, yeah, that was something. That was really something. But she confirms the fraud. She confirms the tampering. She confirms the unauthorized access. This is a blueprint to, and it's not finished being analyzed. Even though the law enforcement have reached out to us, we didn't even have to reach out to them. They want to know what's going on because of all the work that we've already done. So this is, and all the ongoing state and federal active investigations going on. So we are not alone, and we're growing. We're growing because we're sick and tired of what Senator Hawley reported today. And I just put it up there, and it makes you cry, because I've been talking about 85,000 unaccounted for minors. But Senator Hawley is getting us up to date now, right? He's talking 300,000 unaccounted for minors, and he specifies 291,000 unaccompanied minors. And that is the worst nightmare, is an unaccompanied minor. It's a worst nightmare. because we have our 4 children, we have our 9 grandchildren, and they need us. They need us. Family is so important. It's so important. And, it is, so we've been going through also articles about the insurance fraud in the military, the SGLI, and what that has uncovered is also what she talks about. Because we're trying to confirm or deny, it's so easy to go through and absolutely know what are the lies, but what is she telling in the lie? Because um, someone in crisis mode, like she is in, and she is facing the death penalty, um, she is going to project. She can't just uh, make these laws up with no foundation. See, that's why they project, because they have their experiences. They know what they have done. And so they use those experiences, but twist and turn them. That's what false witness is, right? A twisting and turning of them, and then project it onto somebody else. And so she's confirming the fraud. She's confirming the tampering. She's confirming the unauthorized access. She's and you know access to information very quickly. And we even said that early on. Who are these people that are harassing us? They have access to information that nobody should have, that should be protected in the CID and the FBI, in the ATF, in Homeland Security, in the Department of State, in the Department of Homeland Security, in the Mexican military, and the Mexican government Attorney General's office. But no, they had access. They had access to files. Remember, our files in Mexico were also tampered with. And she has that as experience. She says things that absolutely confirm that she knows that our files in Mexico was tampered with. She knows things about Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia. She knows about Thomas Hoffman. And there's some very interesting things going on around there because of the Tavita Nusa and the Thomas Hoffman. She absolutely has a history with Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia. So she confirms the criminal group. She confirms, she's even throwing her ex-husband, who she just divorced just recently, with the child pornography. She confirms that Dallas Hart is Richard's platoon leader. And, we have multiple veterans, multiple witnesses. We have it on record that Dallas Hart is Richard's platoon leader. And both James Hart and Leilani Hart were doing their level best, and you see it in TV and the media all the time, to absolutely not admit that, to absolutely lie between their teeth, through their teeth. But I'm telling you, Dallas Hart was Richard's platoon leader. And so, and she, with this blueprint of the murder and cover up, which is what we're calling this confession, it's revealing more and more of that information. So the projection, what is she projecting on other people, especially on other people like me, that she really wants to control and silence. But I'm going to tell Leilani right now, she is not going to shut us up. She's not going to manipulate us. She absolutely they manipulated us at the beginning, but she's not going to manipulate us now because we understand her extreme lying game, and we've talked to so many witnesses that confirm it, and that we know her criminal record. She has a criminal record, and that she's engaged in so many activities that hurt our society, that hurt our community, and and she wants to milk off it while she's hurting it, right? And she repeats that over and over again, how she's milking the system, and she's projecting on her own fraud, on her own intimidation of others. And we've been reading an article that they know when these soldiers are coming home from war. They know when to take advantage of them when they're getting their bonus money. They know all of this, and that even in the system, um, one article I was reading from 2008, they were having a lot of problems with the fraud, the uh, soldiers' files being tampered with to conduct fraud, um, their insurance money, and all that. So, so absolutely, she is. And this confirming of, I have these little notes here, confirms. And, Anne Ogle pops up in this too. Anne Ogle and Leilani Hart is popping up again. And we know this is very interesting with Senator Hawley's, the article on Senator Hawley, and, him questioning the trafficking of these 291,000 unaccounted for minors, right? Um, and, Anne Ogle being at Park University absolutely knew Leilani Hart. We have that all confirmed. And, being CYS, Child Youth Services, um, working very close with Director of Emergency Services. Very close relationship, the two of them. We have it confirmed that Anne Ogle and Thomas Kane were in business together, had several LLCs together. So that is really revealing. And absolutely very close with Leilani Hart, and of course James Hart, and of course Jules Tuganon Chan. And, you know, the list is getting longer and longer and longer. And, and these are all that were involved in the emergency intake center. They all have, because don't forget, James Hart had Hart Childcare. These are all involved in the health and welfare of children. And we have 291,000 unaccounted for minors. And absolutely, a senator would not make such a big deal out of it unless he knew for sure. When they come and speak before Congress like this, they already know the answers to what they're looking for. Okay? They already know the answers, and the answers is that there's trafficking, and the children are involved in being trafficked. And we know that Richard was reporting child trafficking. And, because he was in communication with FBI Houston. And we also have the testimonies, because there's more than one, of Belen Rocha. And so, and there's more, and there's more. So he was absolutely a whistleblower. He was absolutely retaliated for exposing them, for exposing their unlawful business and participating. And this is our belief. This is our, it appears that they were in the business of trafficking. You know, we shouldn't even pay attention to the 291,000 unaccounted for minors. No, we need to look the other way on that one and not say anything that Jules Tuganon Chan had a hand in the emergency intake center, and so did Ann Ogle, and so did Thomas Kane, and so did Dallas Hart and Leilani Hart and James Hart, because they had Hart childcare. Okay, that connects it all. That connects it all. And you can say, "Oh no, that's just for Fort Bliss." They wouldn't have a Hart childcare if it wasn't for this unaccompanied migrant children problem. Okay, so she is absolute. It's really a crazy read. It's very crazy, and it is a crisis of lies. But she still has to be able to come from somewhere to let it to formulate this very long confession, right? And so that's what we're still analyzing. The other, and it gets a little manly to me. The language of it gets a little manly, and I don't know. I'll be, like maybe she had some help writing it. I don't know. I don't know. It just has a little bit of a manly kind of language. Was her child care center connected to the emergency intake center? That's a very, very good question. I think it was in their house. Um, and I have a lot of information on that, because it's been a while that we've known it, a long time, and so we have to dig that up. And uh, there's just so much to look into, but it's all fitting together that Richard was absolutely um, putting in complaints, and they were threatened. And Michael Ruggiero is being added into this. We have figured out his connection. We have figured out his involvement. Michael Ruggiero is up to no good. Okay, and with Ann Ogle's name coming in this, you can't help but saying Jay Paulin. Okay, and they are absolutely in charge. Ann Ogle and Thomas Kane, and especially Jules Tuganon Chan, um, they had an obligation to these children. And they're mad as hell when you bring it up. Jules is angry. You're the one that brags you're part of this, and I wouldn't brag that I'm part of 291 unaccounted for minors coming into the country and no one knows where they're at. And you have Senator Hawley, who has a lot of resources, saying they were trafficked. These are trafficked children, sexually trafficked. And I know through months of getting messages day in and day out that this is like a sex cult. This is absolutely connected to the Mormon congregation, and this is very sexual. They all are like having sexual favors with each other. They're up to no good. And maybe that sounds like, oh, a party favor or something like that. No, this is breaking all kinds of laws. And of course, a sacrament. And it is really serious, very serious. And what it means is they could care less about laws. They could care less about what laws mean, why we even have laws. They could care less. They are absolutely, with this, their sexual activity, they are lawless. And so um, the confessions from the first one about her family being engaged long term incest, child sexual assault, um, you know, unlawful purchase of weapons, the child pornography, and even in this recent confession, she is saying that James Hart is in possession of child pornography. So, there's always these little sane moments, or you build it from what you know her experience has been. And that kind of clears off a lot of the lying fluff. And then you can see what's underneath there. And she's in crisis mode. She's in crisis mode because she knows that law enforcement are now supporting us. And that's her worst nightmare. And that's Bob Moore's worst nightmare. That is Bob Moore's worst nightmare. And, is she arrested? She needs to be arrested. She absolutely needs to be arrested. But everything is politics. And so stay tuned. But I can tell you this, that we absolutely, we didn't have to reach out. They reached out to us. And of course, we're going to do our due diligence and continue to report all of these things um, for the sake of our country and our young, vulnerable soldiers. So, um, I think, yeah, that's a huge, huge message. The other, of course, I was talking about the insurance fraud, which we cannot put that down because that's a huge one. And of course, the last is the trafficking that Senator Hawley was. If you haven't read that article, please read it and you'll understand my live stream so much better. So that's what needs to be kept in prayer. And I'm just very, very grateful to everybody for all the information they have given us. And we are absolutely analyzing and combing through it. And so God bless you. And we will be back tomorrow, God willing. Bye bye.